departmental store, you must have noticed that all the articles are arranged in an orderly manner. This order helps in finding out the right thing in the right place. It expedites work and avoids confusion. Classification is one such orderly arrangement, and its purpose is to create order in disorder. Classification is essential to handle various items of diverse kinds. And the same is true about living organisms. The organisms living on Earth are innumerable and diverse. They are the product of evolution. All organisms have direct or indirect interrelations. They show diversities in their structures, functions, and behavior. It is estimated that 1.9 million different animal species have been described in the literature of zoology, and that each year about 10,000 new ones are identified, but no two individuals, excepting identical twins, are exactly alike. The student no doubt will wonder about this diversity of life. What produced it? Why do some groups have more variations than others? What was the role of the environment in this diversity? No outright answers can be given to all these questions. But while studying the many evolutionary patterns, we may arrive at some of the answers. Let us see how this variation and diversity of animals is produced. The variations in animals are acquired due to the interactions between hereditary factors and the environment. Changes in genetic patterns through mutations and recombinations of these changes in populations account for the most significant variations. Variation and reproduction make possible the uniqueness of life because variation has changed life's patterns and reproduction has ensured copies of these patterns from generation to generation. Reproduction does not always provide exact copies. There are always some variations in all reproduction. The basic variations or differences among the higher taxa, such as phyla, include morphological features related to nutrition, internal transport and maintenance, organ differentiation, coordination, and locomotion, all features that are closely interrelated. However, after millions of years of evolution, the phyla or major animal groups are so distinct that clues to their relationships are very obscure. In brief, evolution teaches us that all living organisms have come from common ancestors through a gradual transformation of types brought about by change as diversification. Every organism has a historical background that must be understood to appreciate its origin and nature. Chance variations appear now and then in all organisms. They may be useful, harmful, or indifferent to the welfare of the animal. If harmful, the variation may be eliminated by natural selection. If beneficial, the organism may gain some slight advantage over others and so have a better chance to leave descendants. The process of perpetuation must, therefore, in the long run, be responsible for the enormous variety of living forms in past and present times. Over long periods of time, such changes could result in forms quite different from their ancestors. Therefore, as diversity of life occurs, speciation or the splitting of one group of species into two also occurs. It is not possible in one's lifetime to examine all these different individuals. Thus, the orderly system of grouping helps one to understand the particular mechanism operating in any one group by examining a few representatives. Moreover, biologists want to understand the interrelationship among diverse organisms. But the name of animals differ from one language to the other, and often a common name covers several types of forms. For example, there are several types of cranes throughout the world. Thus, the use of common names in science simply creates confusion. For this reason, one has to group the animals, and the use of internationally accepted scientific names is the only prescription to overcome this difficulty. Various structural levels of organization have to be considered for the identification and study of animals. Considering these levels and based on their similarities and differences, organisms are classified into smaller or larger groups. The art of identifying distinctions among organisms and placing them into groups that reflect their most significant features and relationship is called biological classification. The purpose of biological classification is to organize the vast number of known plants and animals into categories that can be named, remembered, and studied. As a result, the study of one organism of a group gives us an idea about the rest of the members of that particular group. This scientific method of grouping organisms into smaller and larger groups is called classification or taxonomy or systematics. Scientists who study and contribute to the classification of organisms are known as systematists or taxonomists, and their subject is called systematics, from the Greek systema, order or sequence, or taxonomy, from the Greek taxis, arrangement, nomos, law. Generally, the terms such as classification, systematics, and taxonomy are used interchangeably, but some taxonomists like G. Simpson relate them to separate fields. He considers systematics as the study of diversity of organisms and all their comparative anatomy, comparative ecology, comparative physiology, and comparative biochemistry. He regarded classification as a subtopic of systematics that deals with ordering of organisms into groups, and taxonomy as the study of principles and procedures of classification. Be that as it may, they are quite interrelated fields and henceforth will be used interchangeably. The knowledge gained through taxonomy is assembled for future use not only for biologists but also for others working in the field of medicine, agriculture, and forestry or industry, and so on. It further facilitates classification of organisms based on their similarities or evolutionary relationships, phylogeny. Moreover, biologists depend considerably on taxonomic studies of fossils for drawing evolutionary relationships among the organisms. Indians wrote the earliest works on animal systematics, but the manuscripts were in Sanskrit, so these remained unknown to Western scientists. Charak and Prasastapada have done animal classification. In the Western countries, Aristotle made an excellent study of animals and classified them. He said, animals may be characterized according to their way of living, their actions, their habits, and their bodily part. He divided the animal kingdom into two major divisions, all invertebrates which lack red blood, and vertebrates having red blood. The English biologist John Ray was the first naturalist to give the modern concept of species and tried to classify the animals. Carolus Linnaeus, a Swedish naturalist, often referred to as the father of taxonomy, published Systema Naturae. Linnaeus proposed the two-kingdom classification system made up of Vegetabilia and Animalia kingdom and introduced a system of nomenclature of plants and animals known as the binomial nomenclature. After the appearance of Charles Darwin, evolutionary considerations were worked into contemporary taxonomic studies, complementing the purely morphological differentiation. Another major step in the refinement of taxonomic science was taken by Ernest Haeckel in 1866. Haeckel represented phylogeny by means of a tree or branching diagram. With further sophistication, a more biological outlook was imposed on taxonomy. Genetic, ecological, geographical, and morphological characteristics were taken into account. Haeckel in 1866 proposed a three kingdoms classification system named Protista, Plantae, and Animalia. Chateau in 1937 proposed two empires, that is, Prokaryota, which consist of Haeckel's Protista, and Eukaryota, which consist of Haeckel's Plantae and Animalia. In 1956, Copeland proposed a four kingdoms classification system in which Monera, Protista, Plantae, and Animalia are included as four major kingdoms. Innovational suggestions include Sokal and Sneath's conception in 1963 of creating a massive catalogue of organisms and assigning each species a number, numerical taxonomy. This idea has been in some way extended with the suggestion of computerizing the categories by Jahn in 1966. The 5 kingdoms of Whittaker's system are Monera, Protista, Fungi, Plantae, and Animalia, proposed in 1969. Monera is the prokaryotes or non-nucleated organisms, and all are unicellular. Protista are the unicellular and nucleated organisms. Kingdom Plantae include all plants such as trees, herbs, bushes, grasses, vines, ferns, mosses, and green algae. Fungi are rather plant-like but nevertheless distinct due to the cell walls that contain chitin, unlike the cell walls of plants which contain cellulose. This kingdom includes microorganisms such as yeasts and molds, as well as the more familiar mushrooms. The Animalia are the true animals. By the 1970s, a system of 5 kingdoms had come to be accepted as the model, by which all living things could be classified. At a more fundamental level, a distinction was made between the prokaryotic and the 4 kingdoms: plant, animals, fungi, and protists. The distinction recognizes the common traits that eukaryotic organisms share, such as nuclei, cytoskeletons, and internal membrane. Dr. Carl Woese in the 1970s was studying relationships among the prokaryotes, bacteria, using DNA sequences, and found that there were 2 distinctly different groups. Those bacteria that lived at high temperatures or produced methane were separated away from the usual bacteria and the eukaryote. Because of this vast difference in genetic makeup, Woese in 1990 proposed that life be divided into 3 domains: eubacteria, archaea, and eukaryota. Archaeans include inhabitants of some of the most extreme environments on the planet. For example, very high temperature, hypersalinity, in extremely alkaline or acid waters, inside the digestive tract of cows, termites, and marine life, where they produce methane in the anoxic mud of marshes and at the bottom of the ocean. And they even thrive in petroleum deposits deep underground. Much is still to be learned about these microbes, but it is clear that the archaea is a remarkably diverse set of organisms. There are mainly 3 types of systems of classification: artificial systems, natural systems, phylogenetic systems. In earlier systems of classification, only one or a few superficial morphological observable characters, with the help of the unaided eye, formed the sole basis of classification of plants and animals. For example, classification of plants into herbs, shrubs, and trees, or classification of animals into aquatic, terrestrial, and aerial forms. Such methods are useful in the primary identification of organisms. The organisms were classified on the basis of natural affinities, that is, the basic similarities and differences in the largest number of characters in the morphology. This phase represents classical taxonomy and constitutes the natural system of classification. Natural systems do not provide any information regarding phylogeny or evolution. The 2-kingdom system, plant kingdom and animal kingdom of classification, is a natural system of classification. Besides morphological taxonomic affinity based on evolutionary as well as genetic relationships among organisms is known as phylogenetic classification or cladistics. They are based on aspects like origin of organisms, their most recent common ancestors, their evolutionary trends, their primitiveness or modernity, their life cycles, etc. They should be able to describe continuity or secondary loss of character. R. H. Whitaker's system of 5 kingdoms is of this type. We will use much of this system in this text. Cladistics is now accepted as the best method available for phylogenetic analysis, for it provides an explicit and testable hypothesis of organismal relationships. The basic idea behind cladistics is that members of a group share a common evolutionary history and are closely related, more so to members of the same group than to other organisms. These groups are recognized as sharing unique features which were not present in distant ancestors. These shared derived characteristics are called synapomorphies. There are 3 basic assumptions in cladistics. Any group of organisms is related by descent to a common ancestor. There is a bifurcating pattern of cladogenesis. Change in characteristics occur in lineages Improved tools and techniques for classification helped in the emergence of new branches of systematics such as cytotaxonomy, chemotaxonomy or biochemical taxonomy and population systematics. The numerical system of taxonomy or phonetics employs numerical methods for the evaluation of similarities and differences between species. Such comparison is possible due to the availability of sophisticated calculating machines and computers. The cytotaxonomy system uses cytological information on cell, chromosomal number, structure and behavior of chromosomes during meiosis for classification purposes. The chemotaxonomy or biochemical taxonomy system is based on the chemical constituents. In this taxonomy, chemical characters helped in establishing relationships and in the statistical evaluation of taxonomic information. We give names to objects around us. You are also familiar with the common names given to pets and even domestic animals. Generally, names are in the local or common language and are called vernacular names. Sometimes, group names like dog, cattle, tree or shrub are also given based on the similarities among the organisms. But it is not possible to identify the organisms universally based on their common names. Even biologists find it difficult. Common names vary with the different languages or even in different parts of one country like India where so many local languages are present. But the scientific ones are universal and acceptable all over the world. The scientific names ensure that only one name is given to an organism and a description of the organism should help other people to arrive at the same name in any part of the world. At present, for the nomenclature of animals, the binomial nomenclature system or sometime the trinomial nomenclature system is used. The binomial system was introduced by Carolus Linnaeus in 1758, in which the first word denotes the genus, whereas the second one is for the species. In Latin, bi means two and nomen means name. Occasionally, 3 words are also used for naming organisms, especially the animals. These include generic, species and subspecies parts. For example, the modern man is called Homo sapiens sapiens. Anyone is allowed to study, describe, identify and give names to an organism provided certain universal rules are followed and such naming must be based on agreed principles and criteria. These rules are framed and standardized by the International Code of Zoological Nomenclature (ICZN). Let us see some of the universally accepted norms for nomenclature. The system of nomenclature adopted is the binomial system as described by Linnaeus in the 10th edition of his Systema Naturae. This system is modified in some cases to include a trinomial nomenclature where a subspecific name is used. Zoological nomenclature is independent of botanical nomenclature and may employ the same names for taxonomic units, but this procedure is not recommended. A scientific name generally has two words in Latin or derived from Latin, irrespective of their origin. The first word denotes the genus, whereas the second one is for the species. The genus name is a single word, nominative singular, and begins with a capital letter. The species name may be a single or compound word, is printed with an initial lowercase letter, and is usually an adjective in grammatical agreement with the generic name. In case the species name is derived from a personal name, it may be written with a capital letter initially. When a subspecies name is used, it also has an initial small letter. Names are printed in italics or are separately underlined to indicate their Latin origin. The person who first publishes the name of an animal or plant is the author of a scientific name, and the name of the author is written in abbreviated form after the species name, and it is printed in Roman, for example, Homo sapiens L. The application of the law of priority will start with 1758, the year of publication of Linnaeus's Systema Naturae. A generic or specific name once published cannot be changed or rejected. The generic or specific name, however, may be rejected if it has been used previously for some other animal. When a genus name is not the one under which a species is placed by the original author, or if the generic name is changed, the original author's name is placed in parentheses. For instance, the name Rana gryllus was given by Leconte to the common cricket frog, but it is now Acris gryllus into bracket Leconte, since the genetic name has been changed. The main aim of a taxonomic study is to assign organisms an appropriate place in a systematic framework of classification. This framework, by which the taxonomic groups or taxa, singular taxon, are arranged in definite order from higher to lower categories, is called taxonomic hierarchy. Each taxon indicates a specific level of similarity and difference. The categories or taxa used in the classification of animals are kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, and species. As one moves upward from species towards kingdom, the differences increase and the similarities decrease. Species. It is a basic unit for understanding taxonomy as well as evolution. It is a group of individuals with similar morphological characters which are able to breed among themselves and produce their own kind. For example, Panthera leo and Homo sapiens are the scientific name of lion and human respectively. In this case, leo is a species of genera Panthera and sapiens is a species of genera Homo. A genus may have more than one species, as in Panthera tigris, where tigris is another species. The individuals of a species also represent the population of the species, and they do not breed with individuals of other species. Genus. It is a group of species which are related and have fewer characters in common as compared to species. For example, lion, leopard, and tiger have several common features and are included in the genus Panthera. You will find that a genus may have a single species, as in sapiens of genus Homo, or it may have several species. Family. It is represented by a group of related genera that are more similar to each other than the genera of other families. The genera like lion, leopard, tiger from genus Panthera and cats from genus Felis are included in the family Felidae. However, if you observe and compare the features of a cat and a dog, you will find distinct differences between them. They are placed in different families, Felidae and Cancidae, respectively. Order. It is an assemblage of families resembling one another in a few characters. These characters are less similar when compared with many genera put in a family. Families like Felidae and Cancidae of animals are included in the order Carnivora. Class. It represents organisms of related orders. The order, named Primata, comprising monkey, gorilla and gibbon, is put along with order Carnivora, representing tiger, cat and dog. Both the orders are assigned to class Mammalia. There are other orders also in Mammalia. Phylum. It includes all organisms belonging to different classes having a few common characters. Among the animals, the phylum Chordate includes classes Pisces, Amphibia, Reptilia, Aves and Mammalia. Since all classes at some stage in their lives have common characteristics like presence of notochord, dorsal, hollow nervous system and pharynx perforated by gill slits. Kingdom. In general, it includes all organisms that share a set of distinguishing common characters. Plants are put in plant kingdom, while animals are included in the animal kingdom. This is the highest category of classification. The higher the category, lesser will be the number of common characteristics of organisms belonging to that category. For example, lion, tiger and leopard belonging to the genus Panthera have many common characteristics but differ widely from bat, elephant, gorilla and man, although all of them belong to the class Mammalia. In actuality, there are more taxa than mentioned above. As more data are collected, more distinction becomes desirable. Consequently, there exist several accepted additions to the basic taxon set. There may be other subranks like subspecies, below the species, subclass, between order and class, and subkingdom between phylum and kingdom. Here is a list of classification divisions or taxons. Kingdom, subkingdom, branch, grade, division, subdivision, superphylum, phylum, subphylum, superclass, class, subclass, infraclass, superorder, order, suborder, section, superfamily, family, subfamily, tribe, supergenus, genus, subgenus, superspecies, species, subspecies, variety, form or race.
The principle and features of classification in this module. Let's check your perception now. Can you identify these animals? Now, classify them with the help of classification system chart and also mention